today we've got a 2013 Polaris RZR 900 XP. We've got an issue with the charging system. As you've seen, we haven't been able to rev this UTV up. We also have a burnt connector on our charging system, as well as our battery continues to drain and we continue to have issues with our battery. So I'm going to show you how to test that stator, that regular rectifier, and then I'm also going to show you how to replace that stator and that Magneto. So we've got the stator off here, and I've showed you how to do that. Now we're going to take the flywheel and remove it. And so we're going to take this flywheel puller here, and I do sell these on our store. Make sure you check those out. I'll put a link below. May not look identical to this. This one actually has grooves in it. Most of the time I don't have these grooves in here. I don't understand the purpose of that. It actually makes it a little more difficult to get things lined up and straight. So if somebody has any idea why they make these grooves or why they put those in there, maybe you could let me know. Otherwise, the puller that you'll receive from me is not going to have these grooves in there. It just makes it more difficult to get things lined up. So slide that onto our flywheel there. And again, be really careful. This is reverse threaded, so make sure you got it going on the right way. And then as soon as you've threaded on a couple times, you can go a little bit faster, put a little more pressure to it, but you don't want to just take and crank on it right away because you want to make sure that you're going straight. So get that straightened up just like that. We can take, and if you can see that there, if the shock's not in your way, take and spin this shaft in, and then we'll take an impact. And this one happens to take a 7/8 socket here. So we'll put a 7/8 socket, and it's probably not going to take a whole lot of force to pull this off of there. And you'll spin this. This will be regular threaded. All right, then we'll take, and you can see it there, just pop off of there, and then gonna make sure it doesn't, I don't want it to fall off all the way, and then I want to try to hold these gears in place there. So I'm just gonna slide that out of there, being very careful. I want to inspect this bearing, make sure that that's in good condition. We've cleaned up our gasket surface here. We've got a new gasket we're going to install. So we got our gasket surface all cleaned up. I like to do that before I put any of these components in here because if you're starting to drop any sort of gasket particles down in here, say you've got your starter gear on there, some of your idler gears, it's just going to cause more areas for that debris to sit. So we've got our gear here, and remember this was kind of a problem area before. We snugged up that nut there. I'm going to double check that that's tightened up. All right, I've actually got a 13/16 socket on here. Remember, this is reverse threaded, so to tighten it down, you want to take and turn it left hand. Now that we have that on, we've got our starter gear here that slides on. I'm not sure, it's directional, so slide that on either direction. Now, if you see how well that spins, remember before it was catching on that bolt there that was sliding out. And then we've got our snap ring here I'm going to install. Okay, we're going to slide that snap ring on there. You do want to make sure that you can kind of see or hear it click into place there. You don't want that to be set on there and then that not fit properly. Next, we've got our starter gear here. You can see there that bushing pops out. So we're actually going to replace this gear. Okay, that's our starter gear here. So that's slid on. All right, we'll take our woodruff key then, put it into place there. You do want to make sure that that's pretty close to flat. If anything, you want it tapered down this direction, if you can tell which direction that is, so that our flywheel can slide over top of it. Okay, then when we get that into place there, grab your flywheel, kind of know where that indention is for that woodruff key. Save a little bit of time putting it together there, kind of spin it into place, and then you can slide it back. The next thing you want to do is take your finger, kind of run it in behind there, and turn it, because that'll help get everything lined up, and then you should be able to just spin this one direction. So if you can spin it both directions, you know you've got your bearing in behind here is either bad or you're not all the way in. It should be fairly close to flush here, and I like to take and tap on it just with my hand, get it in there as far as you can. Now the next thing, you've got, remember, your larger bolt here that we're going to obviously thread lock. We're going to run that in. That's going to smash it on the rest of the way. Before you forget, you want to make sure and get this gear in there. Make sure that that gear will spin on that shaft freely. You want to take this, the more spread out gears is going to be in, and there's no washers on either side. So that you don't have to worry about, and you have to line that up with the actual starter itself. Line it up with the gears on the inside, and then once you get those both lined up, you can push that shaft in there. And now you won't be able to spin any of that because your starter will actually be holding everything into place there. So got that in, and then we'll take, and I'm going to put some thread lock on this bolt here. Make sure your threads are cleaned out. Make sure there's not oil sitting in there or that thread lock won't adhere properly. We'll put a couple drops on there. It doesn't take much at all. When you're screwing this in, it'll actually kind of spread all that Loctite out. And you take and run that in. I like to start it with my hands. Then you can grab an impact and start it. This is going to be torqued down. I'll get you those torque specs. I just kind of go off a feel with my impact. Since it is Loctited, I'm not too specific on how tight that is going to be, but you obviously don't want it too loose. Okay, now we're going to be ready for our gasket, and we're going to be ready for our stator and stator cover. Get that. Again, this was all cleaned up beforehand. Slide that gasket on our two posts there. One on the top here, one on the bottom. That'll hold that gasket into place. And then over here, just kind of a little bit floppy, so we might have to push that up and down a little bit when we get that cover on. Cover is all cleaned out, ready to go back on there. Our stator's tightened down and positioned the way that it should be. Take and slide that into place there. Make sure nothing's in behind it, because once you get it into place there, it kind of suck itself on. You saw it kind of jerk out of my hands there. You want to be really careful with that gasket. That's going into place where it needs to be. And then slide that in. Now that gasket, you should still be able to move a little bit because when you're putting these bolts in there, you might have to take and push that gasket a little bit one way or the other to get these bolts in there, because you don't want to just take and push these bolts through that gasket. You'll end up ripping that gasket in that area. So on these bolts here, you've got this holder. You want to make sure that that's in position. That slides down there just like that. We'll take and start that one. And I'll run underneath here and make sure that gasket is in place the rest of the way around.